Two-time WBFF World Fitness Model Champion, international cover model, successful business entrepreneur, busy father and family man. I want to welcome Shaun Stafford. Welcome to the show, my man.
Wow, thank you so much. That is one hell of an introduction. That just seems like a brag sheet. I keep it because the WBFF, as we were reminded, it was 10 years ago. It's a decade ago.
Isn't that insane? Totally.
I very rarely lead with that nowadays, but it's great and very, very nostalgic to be back and to see you and to be on your show. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my honor. Today, you're like the trifecta. You've got the body, you're successful businessman, family balance. Like in today's world, Shaun, like that is, that's like being world champion on the stage as well. So, oh my gosh, hats off to you, man. That's phenomenal. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because we can really dive into your story, what you're doing, and help so many more people. So thank you for joining us.
Amazing. I am an open book, so ask away, and I will be as transparent as generous as I can be.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're right. 10 years. Has it already been like 10 years since? Like that's insane. That's insane.
It was 10 years, I think, just a short few weeks ago. So, at some point last month, I got a notification on my photos that popped up and was like, it's 10 years since this photo. And I was like, wow, it's a decade. And as you'll know, it goes in the blink of an eye. But then when you put it into the context of real life, children, business, all that sort of stuff, you can say, do you know what? In the last 10 years, a lot of water has gone under the bridge. So
absolutely. And that's a tremendous point. When did you start competing? Like for me, I went from 2013 to 2018. So 5 years. I came into the game a little bit later. I was actually 38 when I actually got into that. When did you start?
I was 2010.
Okay.
So 2010, it was one of those things where I used to have a background in semi-professional sports. So I used to play a little game called Rugby. And it was one of those ones where you had to be strong and you had to be fast and you had to be athletic and you had to spend a bit of time in the weights room. But the physique that you would have as a rugby player would be big and strong and soft, and with the ability to take impact. And then when I got injured and when I retired from rugby, there was a friend of mine who was working in a gym, and they said, "Have you heard of this thing called fitness modeling and bikini modeling? I think we should do that, and whoever does better wins the bet." And I said, "Well, when is it?" And they were like, "It's in 3 months' time." And I said, being a competitive guy, I was like, well, let's give this a try and let's give this a whirl. And we both just really focused in on this show. I discovered what a diet was and what competition prep was, because coming from a professional rugby background, it's night and day. And then it was one of those ones where really stepped on stage, really enjoyed it, really enjoyed the process of competing and dialing in for a show and learning about your body. And then I was hooked, and I did well and kept coming back for the next show and the next show and the next show. And fast forward 18 months and I'm on the stage in Toronto, Canada for WBFF Worlds and managed to walk away with the title. And then you're in, and then you're locked in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is amazing, Shaun. You got in on a bet. I love that. I love that.
I'm one of these guys whose motto in life is say yes to everything exciting. You'll work the rest out.
So I love that. And I want to touch on that point right there, which is we're going to touch on a few of the other things you're doing, but I want to sort of just unpack this a little bit for our listeners and viewers, because we have a lot of high achievers, but they're looking for success, but also with balance. And, when I look at you, Shaun, it's like you've designed a life from the outside. You've designed a life that it's like, wow, look, here's somebody who's following their passion. They're following what they love. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's easy,
Yeah.
but it looks like it fuels you. It's everything's in alignment with what you're passionate about. Would you agree with that?
I would. And I'd say it probably took me having to stop competing to really appreciate that balance. Because I think with the nature of what's required to compete, and especially at the pro level, and I've said this before, I think it's quite a selfish sport because
Totally.
your product to step on stage with the best of the best at a professional level in the world championships, you need to have everything on point if you're to stand a chance of doing your best. And I think that can become all consuming. And I think that it's one of those things where it would lead, and it does lead to a lot of imbalance in your life. So I think, but when you're in the thick of it, right, you get your head down and you embrace the grind and you get on with it. And I think it's only when you come out the other side that you can see potentially some of the impact that it has on relationships,
Oh,
both family, friends, business, but also the impact that it can have on every other aspect of your life. And I think it was kind of when I took a step back from competing myself in physique that I could actually really appreciate how unbalanced my life was. And it kind of gave me a bit of a epiphany, like a eureka moment of, do you know what? This is something which I need to be much more aware of.
that's incredible. Did you have a family while you were competing?
I was married,
Yep.
but definitely no kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be completely honest, having got to essentially terrorist boys, they're just feral animals that just require so much energy and attention and love and just I think there would be zero chance for me to compete at the level that we did with the kids. I think that's and I think that's right because as I said, like competing is essentially at its core quite a selfish thing. You have to put yourself, your training, and your physique at the forefront of everything you do. And I think one of the beautiful things about being a parent is that you shift that attention and that focus from yourself onto your family dynamic and your wife and your kids and that sort of nucleus. And I actually love that.
Oh, that's that's gold right there, Shaun. Would you say that even in business that, because I can look around and I fell into it in certain parts of my life where business was like competing. It can almost be selfish, and we can get to be a workaholic, and all of a sudden, relationships and even our health. There's a lot of people who, they start putting all of their attention into work or business, and then they let their body go. And so I see a lot of similarities of how this all can sort of connect. What would you say around that, even around business, in how to sort of tie these things together? Don't let your health go. Don't get too consumed in business, or maybe you do, but how do you make it work with family, business, and your health?
So I think when you look at health, that as a pillar underpins every other aspect of your life. So if you want to show up for yourself and you want to show up for your business and you want to show up for your family, you first and foremost have to make sure that you're ticking off the boxes. Got to make sure that you're getting enough exercise, that you're eating properly, that you're sleeping as much as you can, and that if you're not healthy, you're not optimized, and therefore you're not going to be able to tackle what you need to tackle at the level that you need to tackle it in every other aspect of your life. So first and foremost, it's one of those things where put your minimum requirements, your non-negotiables. Put them in the diary first. So that could be your training 3 or 4 times a week, and whatever that training might look like, put it in the diary first. And it's a non-negotiable. So, unless you have to take your kids to hospital or
Absolutely.
whatever, there are some things that do trump that. There's a special trump card that can get played on that. But unless that trump card comes out, it is, that is the non-negotiable. That is kind of the foundation of your week. And then it's just a case of being really targeted and focused about how you manage your time. Because I genuinely believe that if you're a good manager of your time and your energy and your resources, there's enough in a day, in a week, in a month to achieve everything that you want to achieve in every aspect of your life.
Oh, well said. Well said, man. A few things that you said, being optimized, not just being busy, but being optimized. Time and energy. To me, those are big ones as well. It's if your energy is not optimized, then my mind, emotions, it seems everything then becomes a grind. And so I love those points that you're saying, just to sort of distill it down to a few little things is, yeah, energy. And so that starts with our body. But how important do you feel our mindset is also with taking care of our health?
I think mindset is arguably one of the biggest factors. And there's a bit of a running joke at work. So every time I get to work at 7 a.m. every morning, and the guy who opens up the gym for me, opens up the health club, and he's a great energy guy. And he always asks, "How you doing today?" And I always say, that, my friend, is a crazy question. You know how I'm doing today. And he's like, and we have a high five and we have a secret handshake, and it starts the day super positive. And because I think genuinely, and there's some element of NLP in this, right? There's some level of neuro linguistic programming. If you come in and you're and you sort of wallow in whatever you might be struggling with that day, sometimes it can refine, reproduce that energy. Whereas if you try and put a positive spin on it and really stay positive, not only for yourself, but for other people around you, if you really try and be an energy radiator rather than being an energy drain, funnily enough, it's almost like fake it till you make it. It's one of those, even if you're in a slightly bad mood, if you come out and try and be as positive as you can, chances are a couple of hours in, you're believing your own lie, and it's great.
See, I love that. That I totally agree. And this just popped out of my mouth one day because I had somebody come up to me and they said something very similar. And it was like, "Hey, man, how's life treating you?" And without even thinking, I was like, "I don't know how life's treating me, but I know how I'm treating life." And it was like, boom, here's the way. So, whatever's going on in life, we're all going to be challenged,
Mm.
especially if you want to be optimized. Um, so I love what you're saying, like generate that energy, versus, yeah, just trying to consume it from where you can. It's also how to generate it. Shaun, how many days do you go to the gym? Do you find that's optimal for you?
So at the moment, because I am training for a fitness race called High Rocks, I'm not sure if you have that or have heard of that over your side of the pond.
No.
It's basically a horrific concoction of lung busting and muscle busting exercises strung together. Uh, and it's basically whoever can do it fastest wins. And I'm competing with a friend of mine in the London show in December. So there's a lot of running in this. So I'm running 3 to 4 times a week at the moment, and I'm doing 3 weight sessions a week. And that's pretty much my training. So if you break it down, there's enough training going on. There's 7 sessions, but I make sure that I have 2 days off a week from the gym or for
Wow.
all exercise.
Absolutely.
So I make sure that I usually have Thursday and Saturday away, to recover and rest.
I love it. I love it. Shaun, is this the life that you've created right now? And you've got these pillars and you're talking about health. And I also believe that family is a pillar that we can actually be fueled and it can help us grow and achieve things that we can't do on our own.
Mm.
Would you agree the same with family, that there's something there, that it's one of the pillars for you, most definitely?
I would go so far as to say it's the reason why you do what you do. So it's one of those things where I think from a family unit, you definitely can't overlook the importance of and support of the partner. So whether it's husband or wife, I think treating that as a team and really investing in that as a team effort, I think underpins the whole thing. I think if the relationship and if you're not investing in the relationship with your partner, chances are it's going to come unraveled one way or the other. And how you choose to invest in that relationship is, there's loads of different ways. It can take the form of a weekly date night. It can take a form of a quarterly parents only holiday. It can take monthly couples therapy, whatever that looks like, whatever strategy you use. I think taking the time to invest in your partner almost doubles down on making sure that the family unit is strong. And then it's just about having that real trying to do as much as you can to be there for your kids and try and be as supportive as possible, despite the fact that they might be driving you absolutely insane at every opportunity. At every opportunity.
Yes, okay. That is definitely par for the course. No doubt about it. Shaun, has your did your parents model this for you when you were younger? Health and family as that reason why?
Um, so my parents were both very sort of, I would say, quite sporty when they were young. So my dad played hockey and was a reasonable runner, and my mum was a reasonable athlete, but never in my lifetime, if that makes sense. So it was a different generation, and I think,
Yeah.
them putting health as an underpinning pillar of their existence just wasn't a thing for them back in the day. I think they played a bit of sport, social, competitively when they were younger, socially when they got a little bit older, and then I think as soon as they had kids, they kind of pack it in a little bit. My father was in the military and my mum was a care nurse. So they definitely had discipline and institutional sort of influences on my life. But to be honest, I wasn't that super close to my parents growing up because my father was in the military and because they were away traveling and they were posted all over the world to give my brother and I a really solid education. We were in a boarding school in the UK. So I went to boarding school between the ages of 8 and 18. So a large chunk of that time was actually away from my family unit. And don't get me wrong, I had an amazing time. I loved it. I got a phenomenal education. I made a great friendship group from that time in my life. And also, it taught me a lot about independence and having to, work shit out for yourself.
I love what you just said because I wanted to go into what do you think is your greatest strength? I think sometimes people can look and be like, oh, well, he's physically strong. But what would you say is your greatest strength in order to hold all this together, continue to move forward in life?
Really good question, Shaun. Um, you know what? And I know we've already mentioned it, but I would say generating GVO.
Mm.
So, like, I try and be as positive, good vibes only as I can in everything that I do. And you know, I think if you try and lead with good energy, then that in itself is a superpower. Uh, but also, I do like to think that, and it's probably getting less and less as I age and learn to say no to things. But I'd say definitely in my 30s or maybe late 20s and 30s, I think my ability to work and my capacity to work when I didn't want to. So to put my
Totally.
head down and to
Totally.
you know go the extra mile to and this carries over into both physique competing, whether it's you know doing that extra session when you're exhausted, or doing those extra reps when you don't think you can, or running that extra mile, or doing that extra, or not having that cheat meal when you really, really crave it. That ability to tolerate discomfort, and that ability to almost revel in the process of grit, I think is also probably a power that, don't get me wrong, I'm choosing to tap into it a little less as I get older and I mellow out a little bit. But I'd say certainly in my late 20s and 30s, that was probably that, and the energy thing and the good vibes only would definitely be a two superpowers.
Love it. I love it. And I would totally agree with you. From the first time I met you, Shaun, obviously years ago, that's what I noticed about you is that. So I totally agree with you.
How
Shaun,
old are your kids now, Shaun?
I've got kids in different ranges.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I've got my daughter just went off to university, so she's in university now. She's 18, 16, and she's full time into soccer, looking for soccer scholarships. And then I've got twins that are 8 years old, so they're just entering soccer, and
Yeah.
yeah, so it's
Good spread. Great
busy.
spread. And at least you've got babysitting, right? So if you need to go out for a night off, the 18 and the 16-year-old can come and look after the two 8-year-olds. That's great.
That's what I thought, but they're at the age like, you know what? Not so much anymore, Dad. So it's like, okay. So yeah. The business pillar, Shaun. How do you view that personally? Is that something that drives you, that you're passionate about? It gives you fulfillment, or is it like a supplement that is like, oh no, this helps with the other things that I'm passionate about, and therefore I don't get sucked into it or owned by it? How
Do
do
you
you
know
view the business pillar?
I think that has also changed over time. I think probably in my 30s, it was very, very important to me. I was, really passionate about creating my own brand and my own business, and, using that as a tool to generate, at the time, what I thought was success, which is,
Yeah.
generate an income, create something that, lives outside of myself. And I think it was, when we created City Athletic back in sort of 2011, it was one of those things where that was a huge part of my life. Creating a business, raising capital, hiring staff. It was just one of those really steep learning curves that I loved the journey and I loved the product, and I really believed in what we were doing and how special it was. And the fact that it's still going 13 years later, through COVID, through Brexit,
Yeah.
Central London has changed a lot. And the way people work has changed a lot. And the fact that we've still got our lights on and that we're growing the business, is really, it's a really nice feeling. But it's also nice that I can have interests, both entrepreneurial and commercially, outside of that health club business that I set up. So it's great to be in the space and also have the collateral to be able to lean into opportunities that come up and really take the ball and run with them, whilst having this kind of foundation of these gyms that I love. And that's where I spend most of my time. But that's kind of my anchor. And then it actually allows me to use the other hours in the day to really be flexible and target that time and push that energy into some other really exciting projects as well.
That is phenomenal. And what I hear as you're talking is, growth. The ability to grow also gives us that feeling of, whether you call it passion or fulfillment, growing, being able to set something up outside of you, whether that be your family, business, things that live outside of you. I love what you just said there. Your how important to you, Shaun, is continuing to grow? Do you do something like that consciously, constantly trying to learn, or is it just you're driven to just see things and then go after it?
I think I think always having the feeling of progress, I think is really essential to me, but I think to also to a lot of people in life. I think when you start to see the wheels come off, I think it's because people feel like they're stagnating or moving backwards, or, you know, they're just going like, what am I doing? Whereas I think if you've got a
Totally.
really clear idea of where you're going and what you want out of this thing we call life and this journey we're all on, and you can start to put those plans into action, then I think you'll always be busy and you'll always be moving forward. And I think that feeling just keeps you going.
Well said. Very well said. Stagnation, moving in just progress. Love that. Love that.
And I see this with a lot of my friends, especially, with, clients that I've trained over the years through the business, and, friends that I've helped with various projects. A lot of people, they really start to question themselves and question what they're doing when they don't have a bigger picture view, or when they're not working towards something. And that can be something as, you know, menial as an income that they want to hit by a certain time. And, you
Yep.
know, I always say, look, find a goal, reverse engineer how you're going to get there. So find out what you really want, and then find a way from that back to where you are, and then put the steps in place. Because then you're on a path, and it's not overwhelming, because the goal might be lofty, it might be crazy, but if you break it down into small mouthfuls, it's actually really, really chewable and really palatable. And it's one of those things where I genuinely believe that if you go brick by brick, you'll build a huge wall, and then you're golden. So, and that, I think having that skill and having the ability to be able to do that, I think if more people took that bigger picture view and then really just reverse engineered it, I think it's one of those ones where people would be feeling that, sense of progress a lot more than they are.
Love it. Oh my gosh, love that. What you said there is, to me, it's like have a big picture. Are you living within a realm that's, have you hit the limit? Do you need to go to a bigger picture or vision? And then I love this, like, it's actionable steps. Yeah, break it down, work your way back to where you are so you can see what is the next thing to do, so you can just start taking a few steps. And I relate that to our fitness journey of where we were to getting onto stage to, like you said, being at that top level. The nutrition, the weight training, the cardio, they're all little bits that you can just add to fuel yourself. So absolutely, well said.
And I think it's one of those ones where you can also reassess at any time. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like you don't actually have to be wed to, you know, things happen, life happens. I know that the plans that I had in place for my life pre-COVID got completely redesigned post-COVID. And it was just one of those things where, life happens.
That's right.
And I think you've got to be really resilient, but also really adaptable to say, hey, do you know what? That didn't work out how I thought it would, but that's okay. Here's what's actually happened. Here's the new goal. Here's the new way to get there. And then just be flexible, be resilient, and make sure you can adapt to this thing we call life, because it will throw you some curveballs, and you just got to crack on with it.
Oh, see, there's no accident in success, Shaun, because the ability to adapt. Yeah, you make all these great plans and then life happens. And I personally think that even when we get challenged, it's for our own benefit. When our plans get mixed up, well, then we can like come back to it and be like, okay, whoa, how can I view it differently? How can I come at it from a different angle? So the ability to adapt, what you said, so key. And to me, that just sort of, ties it together. So absolutely.
And
Well said.
there's always the saying that when one door closes, another door can open. And it's one of those things where, you may have had, I may have had, rugby as the be all and end all at that time. That door closed through an injury,
That's right.
and this fitness journey started. And look how that changed my life. And
Yeah.
then, I retire from fitness and the family starts, and that changed my life. And it's just all these different things where, you know, things come to an end, and then it just gives you the opportunity and the space and the energy to pivot, to create something new, and then to go on maybe a fork in the road that you didn't see coming. And a lot of the time, that's what you're actually meant to do.
Love it. That is so bang on. To create. It's sort of like, okay, to me, I always I wrote this down even just a few weeks ago. It's like, oh my gosh, we're created to create, to keep creating, keep growing, keep changing, keep, you know, ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever you want to say. But to, yeah, keep growing, keep creating. Talking on that, Shaun, what do you have going on now? Because I know you mentioned your fitness facility. Um, you're also handling, you're general manager for a supplement company. You're a podcast host for
Yeah.
a men's, medical
Men's
community
health brand. Yeah.
called The Manual. Is that right?
Yeah, so I have a very busy day. Like I have a very full diary, which is why I said about the time management. My To give you guys an idea of what my day to day looks like, I start at 7 and I usually finish at around 6. So I leave the house at around 6:30. I get home at around 6:37. So it's about a 12-hour day. It's a 60-hour week, but it's chopped up into usually half an hour or hour blocks, and they are back to back throughout the day. But it's great. And a lot of the time, I'm involved in the health club business in the morning. And then at about lunchtime, UK time, which is when you guys over in the United States are waking up, the business side comes on for Ghost. And Ghost Lifestyle is an incredible brand that I've been working with for nearly 5 years, set up by two very good friends of mine. And I just really love their products. I love their brand. I love their message. And there was always this kind of unspoken rule, this unspoken agreement that when the business was outside of the US. So, it was predominantly US, but then when they were looking to grow the business and expand into international markets, that they would give me a little tap on the shoulder and say, "Hey, it's time." And that happened. That happened, I think, 4.5, 5 years ago. And it's just been an amazing thing to be part of, because the brand is just gone from strength to strength to strength to strength over the last 4 or 5 years. And especially with the launch of Ghost Energy, um, it's a huge, huge company. And, you walk down the street in America and it's in every 7-Eleven, it's in every, they sponsor, you know, Major League Baseball, they sponsor NBA, they sponsor, ice hockey, they sponsor music festivals. They're a huge brand. And to think that, I was involved, not involved, but I was there when the two guys were coming up with the idea for it. Like we were at an
Incredible.
expo. Yeah, we were at an expo in Lisbon, Portugal, in would have been 8, 9 years ago now. And they were like, "Yeah, I think we're going to do this brand called Ghost, and this is kind of what it looks like, and this is what it's going to be about." And I was like, "That sounds amazing. I'm going to watch this with open eyes and fingers crossed." And then to fast forward 8, 9 years and to see how well they've done is just incredibly inspiring. And to be a small part of that over this side of the world is also incredibly fulfilling.
Incredible. Wow. Absolutely. Shaun, you're also this podcast host, which is also, I find, very, very timely and needed when it comes to men's health,
Mm.
and called Manual.
Yeah,
And
so
yeah, go ahead.
So it was one of those things where I've been really interested in men's health and in even in medical health because, working with people and working with men of a certain age, there's um, there's certain issues that we all have to meet head on. And a lot of the time there is a good amount of stigma involved, and there's a good amount of, men burying their heads in the sand and not talking about it and not addressing problems. And sometimes that's the right thing to do, and sometimes it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. And you want to, you're really hurting yourself and damaging yourself by not dealing with these problems straight up. And with Manual, they're a brand that I know through a friend of mine, and he said, "Look, we love what you're doing with podcasts. And do you think there's a space for a podcast on men's health and men's issues? And can, as a brand, we collaborate on that?" And I said, "Do you know, I think that's a fantastic idea." And the sort of services that they offer, it revolves around everything from um, erectile dysfunction to hair loss to mental health issues to weight loss to, you know, hormonal testing. So it's one of those things where, from a medical point of view, they really cover the basis for a lot of the issues that men deal with on a day-to-day basis. And they offer really, really good and equitable solutions to make men's lives better. And I just was, as soon as I had a meeting with the CEO and the founder of the company, and as soon as I spoke to my friend, I was like, "I'm in. Tell me what you need." And I rock up once or twice a month, and we have a day of filming and a day of recording. We get some really interesting guests, and we unpack a lot of the issues in a really safe and genuine and authentic environment where people can just talk openly. And hopefully it hits notes with some of the listeners and some of the people that are listening, and they take action around getting some of the things that they're struggling with and seek help. And I think that's a really positive thing.
Oh, that's incredible, Shaun. That's so well needed. Um, as we both know, when it comes to women, there's a lot of places where they can go, and it's absolutely amazing. And I think for men to have those safe places that you're talking about is absolutely essential. So well done, well
And
done.
we all know that men are, we try to be very stoic, and we try and be strong, and we try and, if there's something wrong, we bury our head in the sand and hope it goes away. And sometimes it does, but sometimes it really doesn't. And I think having those conversations and almost having the ability to be a fly on the wall of those conversations can be really, really beneficial to a lot of men who, maybe embarrassed to talk to their friends about it, or maybe embarrassed to talk to their partner about it, or, maybe has something going on for them where they're wrapped in shame from childhood trauma, or from just the way they've been brought up, or from religion, or from whatever it is. This could be around
Oh,
their sexuality, it could be around their looks, it could be around their health, it could be around anything. And I think as long as we can, or the faster we can get to a place where people feel comfortable to ask for help when they need it, I think that as a mission statement is one that we should all try and buy into.
fantastic. Fantastic. Shaun, you're so busy. You have so many things going on, and undoubtedly it's passionate. You're passionate about it. It fuels you. Do you have anything that you do just for you that keeps you grounded, centered? It's like, no, this is for me.
It's a very topical question. I was having this conversation with somebody this week,
Mm,
and I came at the end of that conversation, I came to the conclusion that I probably need to carve one of those little blocks that I talked about in my diary to do things, or to do something just for myself, because I do feel a sense slightly of overwhelm when it comes to just the go, 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 all gas, no
yeah.
brakes nature of my life. And I think, I've had a really some really good conversations with my wife around our social life on the weekends, because, my wife, she's with two kids all day, and, by the time the weekend rolls around, she wants to go out and talk to adults. Whereas a lot of the time I just want to unplug and do nothing for at least one or two of those days,
Right.
just to try and regain some of that balance and some of that calm, because my 50 hours in the week are so intense that it comes back to that downtime on the weekend.
Right.
But then again, as we said, it's about that conversation, that communication between the partners, and that support that you give each other. And so we talked about it in a very, I said, how many days out or how many nights out do you need from me? Do we need to go out for dinner with friends or go out for drinks with friends one night of the weekend? Or is it once every other weekend? Is it, you know, once a month? Like, what does that look like? What do you need? Because I know what I want to do. And what I want to do is be incredibly boring and stay in and just rest and recharge. But, as a partnership, she has different needs. And, part of that, husband-wife relationship is about compromise and about trying to fulfill up, fill each other's buckets up in the right way, so that, we're all feeling seen and we're all feeling heard, and all of our needs are being met. So I would love to carve out something for myself in the
Totally.
next couple of weeks, next couple of months. I'm gonna try and find out what that can be. And it might be, I'm really getting into ice baths and saunas and that sort of stuff, just because, not only is the research out there so conclusive on how good they are for you, but
Right.
how to access and how to modulate that sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, which I do feel is, when you are go, 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 all gas, no brakes, that when we're talking going back to balance, I think
That's right.
that balance on me is slightly skewed. Like, I feel that my go is way more tapped than my chill. And I need to work out how to really unlock that chill side of my nervous system to just allow me to be the best version of myself. We said earlier about, you know, having health and fitness as a pillar of our
Yep.
being. And I feel that in order for you to show up in the best way possible in every aspect of your life, you really need to be able to manage your stress and your nervous system in a way that is really awakened to what's going on for you. And I feel that sometimes entrepreneurs, people that are busy, people that train hard, people that probably don't sleep enough,
That's right.
that stress management and that stress resilience piece is really important. And I'm coming to the point now where I'm starting to feel that I need to actually take action. And it's really interesting you asked that question, because I was having that conversation this week.
Fantastic. Even taking action to, take non-action or figure out how to just slow down to, like, again, to me, all of these pieces that you're talking about, Shaun, are still how do we optimize? What does it mean to slow down? But in actuality, you can be going faster, energetically, connected. I think all of that is key to dating your wife, spending time with your family, building a business, and of course, your body is the pillar of health and vitality and growing and having the tough conversations and being able to be reflective. Shaun, I think you've touched on, oh my gosh, almost everything there is. And so coming back full circle to the beginning, this is why I was so excited to have you on, because even somebody who's been connected and known you for a decade, it's, looking from the outside, it's one thing, but to be able to, have this conversation and share what's going on, the way that you think and the way that you handle everything, it's incredible. So thank you for being so open and transparent about everything.
And my pleasure. And I would say that, success and what it looks like is very different for different people. But I think life and I think success is definitely a team sport. And I think one of the things that I'm very lucky with in my life is that the teams that I have around me, whether it's my family team, whether it's my friendship team, whether it's my teams at work, they're all great and they all, support me and what I do and allow me to really hone in on what I'm good at. And they fill in the gaps of the stuff that I'm not so good at. So I'm under no illusions that I am that this is all on me. It's very, very much a team sport.
Well said. Shaun, where can we go to follow you, see what you're doing next?
It's a good question. I would say social media used to be such a big part of my life, but I think it is becoming less and less important for me just because I like to do it on my own terms. And I think that sometimes we forget that it's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be a tool that enhances our lives, not one that runs our lives. So I am on social media less. However, if you wanna touch in with what me and my crazy family and life is up to, at Shaun Stafford, so ShaunStafford on Instagram. That's probably the best place.
Amazing. Shaun, thank you so much. Pleasure seeing you again and connecting. And oh my gosh, have the most amazing night with your family, weekend. And thank you again.
Shaun, let's not leave it a decade until we touch base again. Let's next time you're in London, make sure you look me up. And Absolutely. Next time I'm over your side of the world, I'll give you a call.
Let's do it.